live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, and sorry for the absence yesterday. Blaming it on Celine. Yep, she's better. She's here. We're here. And it's Wednesday, the 16th. Wow. Okay. Shh. Don't talk about the weather, and don't talk about time passing quickly. If I were, maybe that should be my New Year's resolution. What do you think? Don't talk about the weather. That'd be tough. That'd be a toughie. Because it's sort of a default position. You know, it's just like, it's what you do when you're just sliding in, warming up. I mean, that's what I do when I'm sliding in and warming up. So, I understand there was a debate last night.
You're looking a little overexposed, my dear.
I am?
Just a little.
Okay. All right. I also haven't taken my coat off. Okay. So, happily, I missed most of it. I was out, and when I got back, I dutifully turned it on. And then, I don't know, I lasted for maybe about a half hour, and Wolf Blitzer kept saying, first of all, I can't stand him, and he kept saying, we got plenty of time, we're just getting started. And I'm thinking, you're just getting started? He must have said that twice, and I'm thinking it was already like 10 o'clock or something. So I thought, I turned it off. So did I miss anything? No. I just think at this point it's a waste of my time. I ain't voting for any of these clowns. And it's just, let's do all the dis words. It's disquieting, it's dispiriting, it's discouraging, it's disorienting, it's discomforting. It's just awful. There's a lot more dis words. Why can't I think of them today? Okay, so here's what I thought I'd do. Unless you guys are just dying to, feel free. You can call. You can email. The number is 316-33. What happened to the What happened to that? Didn't it used to be in the shot? No, I don't care. And I mean, I really don't care. And you know what? I want that down anyway. And I want the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
I'm on it. Merry Christmas.
Celine is on it. Okay, so let's just sort of do odds and ends. Unless, as I said, you'd like to throw something into the pot, feel free. Oh, speaking of pot, so apparently the city council is going to essentially decriminalize it real soon. So that if you're caught with some pot, it'll be like a parking ticket. You won't have a record. You'll just pay a fine. And what else? Oh, and they're going to allow more food trucks around. So that'll be cool. That's two cool things that they're doing. And there was even something else. So there's stuff. Oh, they actually passed a budget. Imagine that. Hey, Harrisburg. We passed a budget. All right. So, I was, very lucky, to be invited to this special premiere of the movie Concussion last night. It held at the Southside Works Cinema. And it was a big shindig that was underwritten by the University of Pittsburgh. And I believe Sony Pictures threw in some money too. And the University of Pittsburgh did because was involved because I think as if you listen to the show that Jean Marie Laskus was on last week, there is a foundation that has been formed with the University of Pittsburgh and the producer of the show and Jean Marie, and it's the Bennett Amalu Foundation. And it's setting up a whole thing on brain research that will be spearheaded here in Pittsburgh, and obviously UPMC would be involved. So it was a big to-do about that, and then the film itself was shown. Will Smith plays Dr. Bennett Amalu in it. And Dr. Amalu was there, and what an engaging, delightful human being he is. Jeez. And what a sort of mind-blowing human being he is. When I first heard the story of all of this, I thought of him as, just some sort of minor worker over at the county morgue. And, just a pathologist of some sort. Turns out this guy has 8 graduate degrees. He's got doctorates in like 500 different things. And then he's got an MBA from CMU. While he was working for Cyril Wecht, he's getting an MBA at CMU. He's also going to the University of Pittsburgh and adding on degrees in this and degrees in that. Jeez. See, he was an immigrant. This is why immigrants are the lifeblood of this country. The movie shows how important America was to him, and his whole purpose. Well, he says in the movie, Will Smith says in the movie, he had grown up in Nigeria thinking that heaven was here and the United States was here. For those of you just listening, the U.S. is right underneath heaven. And that his desire was to get to the United States, a place where you could do anything. He totally believed the American dream. And then he comes here with all those smarts and all that energy and determination and ambition. And man, what he does. That's an immigrant. He actually just became a citizen of the United States in February. So I got to tell you, you have to see this film. You have to see this film because, first of all, it's Pittsburgh. I mean, it is this, you realize how much this whole thing has to do with our city, our people, our team. And of course, it was shot here, but it's just Pittsburgh is the centerpiece. And when they're talking about football in it, they're talking mostly about the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course. Heinz Field playing a big role. So Mike Webster ends up on his autopsy table. And they show how he makes he's confused by what he finds. And then shortly after, another Steeler from the same era, same team, and younger, Justin Strelzik, ends up on his table. And then another, Terry Long. 1, 2, 3. Like that. And this has to have been happening in other cities with other teams. These players in their 30s and 40s dying in awful ways. Often suicide, often through mental craziness. Strelzik in a fiery crash where he was driving down, he was trying to kill himself. Long, who drank what? Antifreeze. This had to have been happening all over the place. But it was here with this immigrant where the dots started to be connected. I'll tell you, Cyril Wecht in the movie is one of the most delightful characters. Cyril is I don't think he'll like the way he looks in it, because Albert Brooks plays him and sort of gets him. I mean, I know Cyril, so he pretty much gets him. But Cyril's a better-looking man, and one thing about Cyril, he always looks tan. He's one of those guys, sort of like a Boehner. He always looks tan, fit and tan. And Brooks looks embalmed in this movie. He just looks really white and pale. And so I have an issue with makeup on the Cyril Wecht character. But Cyril's just a really great character in this. People are going to love him. And at the end of the movie, he gets a whole thing, because in the movie, the FBI comes into his office and arrests him or charges him with all these counts. And that was the other thing that's weird about the movie, that to me, because they seem to suggest in the movie, they suggest in the movie that when U.S. Attorney Mary Beth Buchanan went after Cyril with, how many counts were they? Like there's 7,000 counts of using the fax machine incorrectly, mileage certificate, all this just harassment kind of stuff. It was a clear effort to take him down. It was a political vendetta at the time. But in the movie, it appears that it's entangled with the desire to get him and Amalu. It's interesting. I don't know if there's any truth in that. That I don't know. But so Charlie Batch is sitting 2 rows in front of me. And I couldn't help, throughout this movie where you see the toll the physical toll on NFL players and the psychological toll. I'm looking at Charlie Batch, the back of his head, watching this movie about what's happening inside the heads of NFL players, and I'm thinking, what must he be thinking watching this? It would be, for a current player to see that movie, this would be a scarier movie. If you were an NFL player, this would be a scarier movie to see than the scariest movie you can think of. So, I can't imagine that anyone who sees this film will ever look at a football game in the same way. And that's why they tried so hard. That's why the film got made, because of what happened when Bennett Amalu sliced into Mike Webster's brain and how the NFL went after him because they knew what a danger he posed. Cyril Wecht in the film says to Amalu, who doesn't get how powerful the NFL is, who actually thought they'd be grateful to him for finding, hey, do you know your players? This is happening. Don't you want to know about this? Such an innocent in America. Now sadder but wiser. But Cyril says to him, you've taken on the NFL. There's a whole day of the week that they own. Used to be owned by the churches. It's now owned by the NFL. They own Sundays. Making inroads on Thursdays and Mondays as well. So anyway, I recommend it. And pretty amazing. Also met the producer, who was so clearly from Hollywood. It's a woman. She was. I walked in and I saw Jean Marie, and I made a beeline to her and we hugged. She was standing with her back to the popcorn counter, and she was standing with this curvaceous woman in a tight dress with beautiful hair and beautiful everything and glorious. And she introduced me to her. She has a fascinating name. What's her name? Janina, I think. Janina. And she, too, is an immigrant. She's the producer, Janina Scott or something. Yeah? Her husband is the rather famous director, Ridley Scott. And she talked quite a bit before the movie about how it was Ridley. She used her husband to get to Will Smith. Janina, I think they kept calling her. Janina. Delightful woman. So it was quite a interesting experience. And then afterwards, there was Jean Marie did a little onstage interview with Dr. Amalu and Janina Scott and one of the doctors that had helped Omalu's career. He credits Cyril, by the way, for making him. He also seemed to suggest in the movie that when he came to America, he wasn't sure how to be an American. He thought he would fake it, and he just tried to pattern himself after someone. He said he patterned himself after a smart, white, bald guy. And I'm thinking that's Cyril. I think it was Cyril Wecht. So anyway, wow. I don't know how many people are going to go see it. I was saying to Celine, it's one of those movies that, you ain't going to have fun, going to it. It's not a comedy. It's not a shoot 'em up Star Wars. There's no sex. The violence that very much is in this film is the violence we call entertainment and football. But it's not the kind of movie that's going to like be a blockbuster. And yet, I think it's going to have an impact, a big impact. I think it already has. So there's that. Opens Christmas Day. I think maybe even better than the movie is Jean's book, Concussion. She talked quite a bit with Amalu about visiting his family in Nigeria. And she was there when his father died, and she was there at his father's funeral. His father sounds like he was a great man. A great man. Okay, I'll stop. Now, so in the, the celebrations thing that drives me crazy that's in the Pittsburgh paper on Mondays, where my good friend Billy Nardozzi always has his mullet picture from the 70s and a little poem for you want to hear the poem for this Monday? Okay, here we go. It's called The Tools of Life. Stay respectful and mindful and true, and always have a caring heart, and stay humble and honest and trustworthy, and never ever let it part. And stay considerate and faithful and loving, and cherish it and bind it in your soul, and don't ever let it break or bend, because it's a wonderful and valuable tool. I mean, I guess there's a nice thought in there, but I don't know if that's a poem. Anyway, it's that finally, right next to Billy Nardozzi's picture, is another picture that blew me away. Next to Billy Nardozzi's mullet is another picture, and we're told that this is a picture of someone named May Sweeney. May Sweeney. And I wish I could show, it's not going to show up on the screen if I hold it up. Let me just read what's under the picture. Mrs. Linda and Dr. Gordon McLean are proud to announce that their Rottweiler, May Sweeney, has passed both her Good Dog Citizens test and her Therapy Dog International test. And there's a picture of this. This is not a Rottweiler. That ain't a Rottweiler. It's the cutest looking. It's the sweetest dog. But so next to Billy Nardozzi is a dog, May Sweeney, who's celebrating that she is now a therapy dog. And it says, "Well done, May. You bring joy to anyone who is fortunate enough to meet you." So, I mean, I'll put this personals page up against any newspaper in the country. Post-Gazette, celebrations page, births, anniversaries, May Sweeney, Billy Nardozzi. It's all here. Don't ever miss it. It's one of my favorite sections. And oh, by the way, right next to May Sweeney is a cute little boy's picture, which is unusual. And this one says, Dr. Gordon McLean and Linda McLean are proud to announce the third birthday of their grandson, Luke McClure. And they go on to tell you a little bit about Luke. Well, then you realize, wait a minute. Dr. Gordon McLean and Linda McLean, well, those are the same people that were proud to announce that May Sweeney had passed her. I wonder which came first. Let's put the dog in the celebrations column, and then maybe somebody thought, it was your grandchild's birthday. Maybe you should put him in. as well. So there it is. Luke McClure, Mae Sweeney, and Billy Nardozzi. Can't beat it. Oh, speaking of dogs. By the way, I saw Sally Wiggin last night, and speaking of dogs, she's got one of her specials on tonight at 8, and the subject is dogs. I said, Sally, could you narrow that down a little bit more? She said, oh, God. But dogs. And she says it's really good. So if you're a dog person, you want to be watching TAE tonight at 8 o'clock. Okay, I'm looking at a picture of another dog here with his owner. They're cuddling on the grass. The thing is, this owner is a king. He's a king, and the picture's from 2002 when he had just rescued this dog. A king can have any dog he wants. And this king took this dog out of an alley. It's not clear what kind of a breed this is. He ended up writing a book about her. I'll crucify his name if I attempt it, the king. King Bhumibol Adulyadej. He's the king of Thailand. Thailand still has a king. But he doesn't really rule. There's a military. Not nice people who rule. The king is revered and adored. He's very old now, and he's not well. And I'm just... Everybody knows the king's dog because he wrote the book about the dog and all that. But what I wanted to tell you, that this week in a courtroom in Bangkok, a worker, a poor guy, was charged with making a sarcastic post on the internet about the king's dog. A sarcastic post about the king's dog. And he has been charged with sedition and insulting the king of Thailand, which means he could spend 37 years in jail. Now, I saw this article, I think, 2 days ago. Today, I read in the paper that some poor woman was charged with the same kind of thing, insulting the king, saying something that was considered. And she got 14 years, and then somehow that got cut to 7. She said nothing. I mean, it was like nothing. It's like, she looked sideways or something at, and this is what happens. This is why, when we take for granted our freedoms in America, and when cynics in America say, our freedoms are eroded, we don't have any freedoms anymore, we're living under the... we don't know what we're talking about. We're still some of the freest folk on the face of this earth. We don't have to worry about spending having our lives taken away because you say something about a dog. Last year, a very prominent professor was accused of insulting the king. This king, though, was not this king, not the guy whose name I tortured. He was charged with insulting a king who's been dead for 400 years. I don't know how many years he got. The American ambassador has been investigated for having said something that didn't quite pass muster with the Thai military that controls. So there you have it. Insult the dog and spend the rest of your life in jail. I don't even know what the poor person said. And people who know, the suspect's lawyer, the poor guy, said, I knew this law applies to anyone who specifically defames the king or the heir apparent or the regent, but I'm incredulous that it could be broadened to include the dog. I never imagined they would use the law for the royal dog. There you go. What else I got? Okay. It's odds and ends. I know there are certain people that get a big kick out of disparaging pigeons, but I'm not one of them. I get a kick out of them. I love the fact that, like, when you're downtown, there's other life in the city other than humans. I love watching them on the sidewalk. They keep things clean, too. I know. Some people say all they do is make things dirty. But on the other hand, I watch them, cleaning up all the crap that people drop on the sidewalk. Anything edible, they're on it. But get this. This is a science thing now. The phrase bird brain is absurd because birds might have tiny little brains, but they pack a wallop. I've spoken often about the brilliance of crows. Well, it turns out pigeons ain't too dumb either. Get this. They can pick out letters of the alphabet. They can detect emotion in people's faces. They can tell, and see if you could, a Picasso from a Monet. During World War II, the renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner taught pigeons, never heard of this, taught pigeons to guide bombs toward a target for the Navy. They were never sent into combat, but they were capable. That I'd like to know more about, but that's all that this article I'm holding in my hand tells me. But now, more research being done at the University of California at Davis and Emory have shown that pigeons are unbelievably good at detecting cancer. The birds, and this is cancer. Now, it's not like, we've heard dogs. There are dogs that can smell. When they smell you, can tell if you have cancer. So, if you want a cancer screening, it could be in the future you'll go into a room and they'll send a dog in and the dog will smell you. And it's known that the dog can, in fact, detect there's some kind of a chemical that is released if you have cancer. Whatever, they get it. Pigeons, though, are detecting cancers looking at X-rays. They're like better than radiologists. They got an 85% accuracy rate, which is every bit as good or is probably better than like medical students. A pigeon. Don't ask me how. So the birds were trained. They looked at slides at 4 times magnification. And when confronted by these mammograms, they absolutely could. Now, it's again unclear in here how they managed to pull it off. Pigeons find it easier to make the diagnosis by looking at cells from biopsies. And the research is in the Skinnerian. It's like B.F. Skinner kind of a tradition. Here's how they do it. They keep the birds hungry. The birds are kept at 85% of their normal weight, are put into what is known as Skinner boxes. Anyone who took Psychology 101 learned about Skinner boxes, which allows very strict control of their environment. And they're shown images of breast cells on a flat screen. And they have learned that if they spot cancer, they peck on the specific area on the screen. And they're rewarded when they're right and not when they're wrong, and they get very good at it, which is how they can tell Picasso's from Monet's and... Jeez. Chris writes, interesting, your comments on Concussion. I can't wait to go and see this. Was Mike Webster's widow there? I don't know. I mean, if she was not introduced as his widow. I mean, if Justin Strelzik's widow was there, she was not either. There are a lot of widows. There are a lot of families. God knows. You know, over 5,000 former NFL players have sued the NFL. And the deal the NFL made with them is a bunch of crap. And if any sense that the NFL is really still is dealing with this thing is clearly bull. You get to see how the NFL operates when you see this movie. They're scary. They are really scary. I don't know if they were in attendance. They could well have been, although I would think they might have been. I don't know. There were a lot of people in that theater who were definitely part of the story. There were doctors and pathologists. Cyril Weck could not be there, which is too bad. Because, I mean, there were times when the audience in Pittsburgh laughed at a Cyril, when Cyril said something on screen, Albert Brooks, that other audiences anywhere else I would not laugh at. But it's because we know Cyril, that there's another layer of enjoyment that we can get out of some aspects of this. Cyril had a great deal to do with this discovery in that he allowed Bennet Omalu to do some of the things he did, and there was I guess the supervisor or something of the morgue did not like Bennet Omalu and was really pushing against this throughout the movie. So I don't know. I didn't like the actor who played Mike Webster. I feel like I knew Mike Webster. I've often told the story of being with him. We were both like, he was the speaker and I guess I was the MC at a breakfast somewhere soon after I came to Pittsburgh, maybe 1981, 82. And when I knew I was going to be sitting next to Mike Webster, I just panicked. I thought, oh my God, how do how am I going to have a conversation with Mike Webster? I mean, ooh. And then I thought, well, we have this thing in common. We're both from Wisconsin. And we both went to the University of Wisconsin. So I thought, well, we'll just get into that. And, I can talk football because of Green Bay and all this stuff. So I sat down. He was so nice. But what blew me away was how smart he was. Because if I had been worried about what am I going to talk to Mike Webster about, he put me at ease immediately, because he immediately engaged me in serious conversation. And again, because of my bad memory, it was conversation about, some intellectual topic. I can't remember what it was, but when he brought it up, I thought, what? All these assumptions I had. We have these assumptions. He's an NFL football player. So I'm thinking, oh my God. He was nice. He was. And then by the time we meet him in the movie, he's living in his car, and his mind is gone. But the actor I don't know, there's something about the actor who plays him. He looks slightly like him, but Mike Webster had, to me, a good, wholesome kind of, Midwestern, Wisconsin face. I recognize faces like that. And the actor who plays him has a face that looks like it looks like a gargoyle to me. So that I found off-putting. And that's just me. I couldn't help it. I couldn't see him as Mike Webster. The actor who plays Justin Strelzik looks very much like Justin Strelzik. But that's a problem when you know what people really look like. It's problematic, I guess. But anyway, too bad Cyril couldn't be there, Chris writes. Cyril never passes up an opportunity to be in front of the camera, but never in his wildest dreams did Cyril think he was going to be a major player in a major movie, I would think. This is. Always enjoyed when Cyril was on with Doug. And when they show Cyril's office in the film, here again, we'll understand why. There's a picture of John F. Kennedy. There's there's a book about Kennedy's assassination. And, of course, we in Pittsburgh know why that would be in Cyril's office. There's a lot of things that Pittsburghers will know as they see this movie that other people will not. So it's very much our movie. And for that reason alone, I hope Pittsburghers turn out in big numbers to see it. What else we got? All right. New data from the Federal Highway Administration show that since the year 2000, people of every age demographic have been slowly letting their driver's licenses lapse or have not been getting them in the first place. I left one thing out. Every age demographic under 60. So, 50 to 60, 40 to 50, 30 to 50, they're seeing it's the first ever. Driving and people with licenses has been a steady up since the Model T. And all of a sudden, guys, this is why you're seeing bike lanes. This is why people, And I've noticed it with young people. I've been blown away that so many young people I know, don't have a driver's license, and they don't even care to have one. And I, over 60, find that appalling. My mother, over 90, finds it an outrage because, as she says, because she's got grandchildren that don't have their license. She can't believe it. Let me think. Two of my brother's kids in their 20s don't have a license. I know my former producer, Jess, didn't have a license. I meet people all the time. They don't have licenses. Remember when we turned 16, you couldn't get out there to get a learner's permit fast enough. So, I forgot what I was trying to say. My mother. Oh, yeah. She is appalled because and I think she's right. She says that driving is one of those skills that you have to know, like you have to know how to swim. It's the kind of thing when in a certain situation, you got to be able to, if, God forbid, I don't know, you got to be able to jump in and be able to drive a car. Just like, God forbid, you're in a capsized boat, you need to be able to swim. These are like survival skills to her. But try telling that to anybody under 50 now. They don't care anymore. They're giving up their licenses. They're not getting them in the first place. It is not just millennials. Transportation. They're saying cost could have something to do with it, by the way. Transportation is the number 2 household expense in America. Isn't that amazing? And it's almost entirely connected to car ownership. So it's expensive to own a car. And I guess in these tighter times, a lot of people are saying, but, if you live in a place that doesn't have mass transit, how the hell are you supposed to, or if you're rural, you gotta know how. Of course, all this is going to be moot, right? In 10, 20 years when cars will all be driving themselves and there'll be no need. So there you have it. Drivers are getting older because the younger people are just not doing it. Oh, gosh. Okay. This is one of those ones where, these stories are coming every few seconds now. I take you to Lebanon Valley College. I guess this is in Pennsylvania, right? Lebanon Valley College in Annville. I never heard of it. However, one of its buildings is called Lynch Memorial Hall. You ahead of me now? Students at the college have called on administrators to either remove the name Lynch or add the first name of the guy who was a college president for whom the building was named, Dr. Clyde Lynch. And all hell's broken loose. I think that's crazy. The guy's name is Lynch. It's not about. I remember this has to be 25 years ago now. Someone got in terrible trouble. I'm trying to think where, somewhere on the East Coast, for using the word niggardly. All hell broke loose. I think someone's job was gone, whatever. Any effort to explain to people that that word had nothing whatsoever to do with the N word. It was not the same derivative. It had nothing to do with it. It simply meant cheap. And was not in any, but that word now, a perfectly good word. It didn't matter that, the facts didn't matter in that case. The word itself was considered so outrageous that was it. And now, okay, I know people named Lynch. I worked with one, Adam Lynch. He was an early television anchor and a reporter for WTAE. What should he have done? I mean, would he be allowed on the air? Because every time he said his name, I mean, some people would be triggered. The alums are going nuts. This is absurd, writes one. I'm all about inclusiveness and diversity, but this is illogical, irrational, and ridiculous. Anyone who would think that Lynch Memorial Hall has anything to do with lynching is an abject fool. Here's another. As a graduate of Lebanon Valley College, I apologize for this foolishness. The thought that Mr. Lynch's name is somehow offensive is absurd and arises from a fevered imagination. He had nothing to do with the horrors inflicted upon African Americans. So, I don't know. By the way, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the term lynching has its origins in the Revolutionary War. And the term is derived from a man named Lynch. It's true. Captain William Lynch of Pittsville, Virginia, who essentially headed a kangaroo court. He had no real authority, but people were brought before him, and anyone who was a suspected British loyalist who ended up there was known that they were not going to get a fair trial. It says in the OED that people called this punishment Lynch's Law or Lynch Law. The penalties were not necessarily hanging. The penalties were beatings or tarring and feathering. But by the mid-19th century, to lynch a supposed offender meant to hang him. But the original meaning was not, it was about a miscarriage of justice, but it was not necessarily about hanging. And yes, it was named after a guy who had this kangaroo court during an extrajudicial court, whose name was Lynch. People acknowledged that it wasn't a fair trial, and they called it Lynch's Law. Thus, the term lynching. here's something on licenses, driver's licenses. My students that I teach could not care less about getting a license. Now remember, I teach in a school that would be equivalent to Carrick or Dormont or another blue-collar neighborhood near the city. The area is, I think there's a typo here. Something has public transportation, a lot of people. Our high school does not bus students in. About 80% take the bus to school. The students can get anywhere via bus. And to them, the bus is awesome. It's not a shameful thing that sadly most people put on public transportation. They take the bus to their friends' houses, to the mall, to the city, to other places. We also have an elevated train near us that they can jump on and get into the city. Only about 3 in 10 students have or want a license. Cost is definitely a factor. Insurance is very expensive, so with the ease of public transportation, most parents don't even want their kids to drive. Also, remember with FaceTime and the like, kids don't have to be at each other's houses to talk. All these things are true. My son, who has a driver's license and enjoys driving, still takes the bus a lot. A lot. It is true. The first thing he thinks of is the bus. That's good. Chuck writes, my daughter lives in Brooklyn. Well, none of her friends have cars. No, you can't. When I lived in New York, I didn't have a car. You can't. Nor does she. She argues there's no reason to have a license. She uses the subway and Uber to go everywhere. She still has her Pennsylvania license, but she says she's not going to renew it. So she'll become part of this absolute, I think it's just going to pick up downturn in people who can drive. She says that for as long as she will live in New York, she'll never get a car. Well, that would be smart. And Chuck writes, and on a different topic, my younger daughter won't register to vote because too many of her friends have been drafted for jury duty while attending college. She said she'll register to vote after she graduates. Oh, come on. I hope you gave her crap about that. Come on. It's never, no one, believe me, after college, she ain't going to want to get a jury summons either. Nobody wants a jury summons, almost nobody. William writes, according to the 2000 census, there are 114,000 Americans named Lynch. So if anyone is going to insist that the word has to be abolished, that's going to cause a lot of pointless trouble. That is correct. See, things, pick your fights, pick your battles. Maybe that comes with age. Just a little more wisdom. That's all. As a Gail Collins had a op-ed that I sort of wanted to share part of with you, and this is beyond belief. Well, it's not. Okay, I take you to Missouri. God help us. To their state legislature. God help us. And we learned a little bit when my sister lived in Missouri. She would sometimes share with us horror stories of what happens when you live in a state that has lost its mind to these whacked out Republicans. So listen, the Missouri House of Representatives has a bill in it that would treat Missourians seeking to buy firearms. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot what this was about. This is a great bill. This is a bill by Representative Stacey Newman, who's a Democrat. She might be one of the few. There might be 6 Democrats probably in that state house. She's got a bill in there that would treat Missourians wanting to buy a firearm the same way it treats Missourians seeking to end a pregnancy. So that the bill calls for a 72-hour waiting period. You know, that's what they do to a woman wanting an abortion. You got to wait 72 hours. And all the other harassing laws that they have put in the way of women trying to access health care has left Missouri with one clinic that provides abortions in the entire state. And that's in St. Louis. Now, in the bill that this woman put into the House, she did not attempt to limit the state to just one gun store. Although, if she really wanted to drive home the point, she well could have. But her bill simply requires that residents buy their guns at a licensed dealer located at least 120 miles from their homes. Ha ha! And then, after cooling their heels in a local motel for 3 days, like a woman wanting an abortion, the prospective buyers would then have to listen to a lecture about the medical risks associated with firearms and would be forced to view pictures of people killed by guns. I think it's brilliant. Of course, it'll never see the light of day, but I think it's a brilliant way to make a point. Gail Collins ends her screed thusly. The current debate on the Republican side has slid so far to the right that the moderates are people who do not want to force rape victims to carry a fetus to full term. That's a moderate now. And a moderate on the Republican side is someone who does not want concealed weapons allowed in elementary schools. That's a moderate. Maybe what this campaign needs is a 72-hour waiting period for everything. So someone might actually sit down and think rationally. Whew. Okay, I guess that's it. I said my say, and hope you enjoy this really very beautiful day. Wow! Bye!
Sorry.
That was okay.
Not me.
Jeez.
Just pressed the wrong button.
Okay, she pressed the wrong button. Well, I was saying goodbye. It's okay. Goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow. 23 hours. See ya again.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.